Hi everyone and welcome to the first episode of the TengTools Talks. My name is Bianca Vadiva and I'm here with Vanessa Ruck, also known as the girl on a bike. Vanessa is a racer, a rider, and she has newly become a new mum. In this first episode, we will be exploring her journey, how she became the girl on a bike and how she is navigating motherhood. We are very excited to be here today and for you to be joining us. Hi, Vanessa.
Hey, welcome to my workshop.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We are very happy to be here today. Thank you so much for having us. We would like to begin just talking about your journey. We know you've had your fair amount of challenges and we just want to know more. Hopefully our audience will also be able to resonate with some of your what you've been through and be inspired by it. So just to start with, we would like to know about how you become the girl on a bike.
Really good question, and one that I would definitely say is a bit of a result of a roller coaster and just the curveballs that life throws at us. I would just say that I'm a completely normal girl. I grew up in Kent. There's nothing special about me. I was going through my life. I was an account director in marketing, very, very career focused, but I was also incredibly active in the extreme sports outside of work. And on a very normal Tuesday, I got hit by a car.
Wow.
On my commute home from work, on a bicycle. I didn't own any motorbikes at the time. And that accident was life-changing.
Yeah.
It wasn't a bleeding mess or anything dramatic at the time. I was taken to hospital in an ambulance, discharged from A&E with bruising.
Right.
But if you forward 7 years and jump to that, I had 7 surgeries across those 7 years, including a reconstructed right shoulder and right hip. And I now live and manage chronic pain as a result of it and have a 95% certainty of needing more surgery. Wow. But what happened in that journey is the curveball of life that took me in a totally different direction. And my discovery of motorcycles, my recovery was very much physical to reconstructed body parts, but I would really heavily emphasize that despite those very physical recoveries, having to learn how to walk after 5 hip surgeries, the rebuilding trust, the muscles, the rehabilitation, it was actually the mental health recovery that was far more significant and more difficult. I was diagnosed with multiple mental health disorders, depression, fear of the road, which doesn't lend yourself to getting your first motorbike, change disorder. I didn't even see myself as me. And through my mental health recovery, I discovered motorbikes. Maybe not quite as extreme as this beauty here, but it set me on a new course of realizing the adrenaline, the thrill, and the escapism, the adventure that two wheels brings. And it started with a cruiser Harley Davidson, which is parked up in the garage over there. And then the easiest way to describe it, and the way a lot of my friends would describe me, is like the hashtag that escalated. It just kind of snowballed and went far more intense than I ever expected. So how did I become the girl on a bike, which was the original question? It was a journey. It wasn't like I woke up in 2016 was when I first started my Instagram account. 2014, which is just quite a few years ago now, over 10 years ago. 2016, I started an Instagram account, and I didn't at that time think, right, in 2024, I'm going to do one of the toughest, most extreme endurance races, one of the most highly infamous events there are in the motorcycle calendar, and do that in 2024. No way did I vision that.
So it was a journey.
Each year it was a case of pushing my boundaries, pushing my comfort zone, upskilling and setting new goals. And that escalated really fits to that. So here, this is my full rally replica factory rally bike that I just did the original Dakar on in 2024.
Which is amazing. Yeah. A very inspiring journey. What was the thought process? What was the mindset when you were going through all of that and navigating and having to reinvent yourself?
There's lots of different sides and elements to the journey. There's been a lot of very dark days where I've felt like I've been in a tunnel, and my recovery was me coming out of the tunnel and the
Yeah.
light at the end, and suddenly I was going to be back to how I used to be, and I'd be pain-free and
Yeah.
able to do my sports and fit, and the accident would be in the past. And every time I had to have more surgery because the human body is really, really complex, and
Yeah.
things got missed or reconstructions failed. Every time that happened, the tunnel was suddenly a few miles longer.
Yeah.
And sometimes it felt like the light went around the corner, and I had some really, really difficult periods
Yeah.
trying to keep positive,
Yeah.
focused, motivated. I think people often ask me, like, how did you keep going? Why didn't you quit? And
Yeah.
it's almost like, well, you can't quit.
Okay.
Like, this
What
was
kept
the
you
life
moving?
that I was given.
Yeah.
I couldn't change the cards. And I think when I was younger, my mum was really quite ill for a good few years of my childhood, and she actually had to say goodbye to me a few times for surgeries where she didn't think she was going to come out the other side.
Wow.
But my mum never quit. She never gave up, and she always found ways to adapt and move
Yeah.
forwards, and I think that taught me a lot. And so my journey has always been, I've always had the expectation of trying to get back to pain-free, and it's
Yeah.
not been realistic, but instead going, okay, how can I adapt?
Yeah.
What can I do differently to get up and make the most of that day and not have the excuses? And my old sports, kite surfing, wakeboarding, rock climbing, wakeboarding, horse riding, mountain biking, all of these things, I have gone back to most of them and dabbled with them, but I always compare myself to how I used to be,
Okay.
how my body used to feel, how good I used to be, what the
Yeah.
pain used to be. And on a motorbike, I don't have the comparison.
Because you weren't doing it before.
No.
So it's something completely new that came after the accident.
Exactly. And there's something about being on a motorcycle, particularly when you take the extreme desert racing,
Yeah.
even on the road, you have to be so in the moment, the focus.
Yeah. You can't think of anything else. You have to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And the navigation in these rallies is a piece of paper which is like a pirate treasure map, really. You're
Yeah.
reading codes, lines of code, compass bearings, French abbreviations, whilst trying to race through really challenging terrain. Like sometimes the dunes are 400 meters high.
Yeah.
And you're going through a dune field. Next minute you're in a really rocky riverbed, and you're still trying to read this piece of paper
Yeah,
on your
doing both
handlebars.
things at the same time.
The last race I did was 6,000 kilometers over 13 days.
Wow.
And 46% of the bikes made it to the finish line. Like, they're really tough races.
Yeah.
And in those moments, you are so alive. You're
Yeah.
so in it. And I don't want to say it's like an escapism from life in a negative way.
Yeah.
Because it's not like I want to avoid my life.
Yeah.
But it's an escapism in a form of pure adrenaline and being in the moment.
Exactly.
Which is addictive.
Yeah. I was going to say, because in that moment, you can't be thinking of anything else. So maybe in that way, it is an escapism. You're escaping because you can't focus. You can't think of anything else. You have to be there.
Yeah, you think about something else, and that rock will,
that
will
could be.
teach you not
Yeah.
to.
I would like to go back to an idea that you mentioned earlier, which is having this idealistic idea in mind, the you that you were before, and you were trying to go back to that, and just realizing that actually there is no such thing, and you have to deal with what you've got in front of you. How was the journey realizing that?
I think that's a really hard one, and for anyone with anyone in their life who's going through some kind of trauma or recovery, my advice to them is to really help the person that's going through the trauma look ahead. And I've got lots of friends who are like, when's Vanessa coming back? When are we going kite surfing? When are you going to be back to how you used to be? And those kind of return to the past goals are just so impossible. It's an irreversible journey. And actually, I wouldn't want to go back to who I was before the accident, because I actually think I've learned so much through the recovery of what's worth fighting for, what's important, what
it made
gives
you grow.
Yeah,
it changed you, but in a way that you are way more complex now, because you have all these problems that you are carrying because of it, but also it has opened a new world for you.
Yeah, definitely a new world. And I sometimes wonder whether I'd even have the strength to do the sort of races that I do now if it hadn't been for the amount of fight and pain I had to go through post the accident. Like, it's made me stronger.
Yeah, it has given you resilience.
So I just encourage people to focus on rebuilding.
Yeah.
And I think adapting is a really important word.
Yeah.
Even now, I was doing a workout in the garden this morning, and there's certain exercises that just make my hip really angry.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll get this stubborn grr and I'll just do them, and then I'll suffer the consequences for the next 24 hours. But actually trying to be kind to yourself, listening to your body and understanding where you can adapt to make the most of it, the day is really important. And for me, the motorbikes were a really good way for me to find a new focus in life. It started with a Harley Davidson cruising on the road, really. And that was like a sofa with an engine.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah,
people
compared,
say, well, how do you ride a motorbike when you had, you know, dodgy shoulder and hip? And it's like, well, there was months and years of that recovery where I couldn't get on a motorbike because I wasn't physically able. But it was a surgery every year, ups and downs, highs and lows. And I don't want to talk negatively about motorbike riders, but there are a lot of really fat, unfit motorbike riders.
Okay.
Like you don't ride a bike with your shoulders. You don't hold the bike up with your
Yeah,
hip.
there is
like,
a technique that you need to keep in mind.
This bike, you need to be ridiculously fit to do these sort of racing. But the Harley was a sofa with an engine.
Yeah.
And it gave me, we did 25,000 miles in the first few years, did probably 15, 16 countries around Europe, and it was a new focus point.
Yeah.
And a totally new world. And then when I wasn't able to ride the bike and I was in recovery from surgeries, maybe I was able to get out to the garage.
Yeah.
And that is where my mechanical side of things started to come into fruition, because I wasn't maybe fit enough to ride, but maybe I could do some customizations of the Harley and start to learn about how the engine works. And I did stage 1 and 2 upgrades on my Harley, which is, you know, pistons and conrods and exhaust pipes, intakes and stuff, and that requires tools, and that was probably the start of my journey, realizing that I quite like tools.
Yeah, that's a really
they make
good,
life easier.
They do, for sure. That's actually a really good point, and it links with my next question, which is, how did you come across to TengTools and what made you fall in love? And here we are.
Fall in love, get obsessed.
Yes.
Okay, so the first tool that I ever had that was a Teng tool was a torque wrench. So basically, when you are doing up engine casings and things on a motorcycle, if you're putting the wrong torque onto that bolt, it's really, really expensive.
Yeah.
And I learnt that the hard way early on. And then I discovered that you could get a torque wrench, which is going to enable you to put the right Newton meter of force through whatever engine, bolt, whatever you're doing.
So it was a torque wrench, the first tool that you ever
The first tool.
had.
And this is, I would say, in the tool world, as far as like the tools that maybe people on budgets buy.
Yeah.
A torque wrench is one of those tools you know you're going to buy and you're going to have for life.
Yeah.
And so I did the research to find what's going to be the sort of tool that's going to be by my side for a long period of time, what comes with good warranties, what's made with good kit. And that's where I stumbled upon TengTools, and I quickly realised that I really like the kit, and it's sort of multiplied a bit. And every time I need something new, that's my first point of contact to see, does Teng do that? Because I now trust the tools. Yeah. Torque wrench has to be one of my favourite tools because it saves you money in the fact that you're not going to get things done up incorrectly and crack engine cases, which a lot of people do. Yeah. But it can also hugely be on the safety side of things. There's a lot of bolts on a motorcycle that you don't want to be coming undone on you. Yeah. But if you over tighten them, you can break things. If you knowing that you're getting it done up correctly
and having the right tool. Yeah, this is definitely something that TengTools we stand for, which is having the right tool when you need it, so it saves you time. And overall, this is something very important for TengTools, is having something that you know you're going to have for a really long time, because it is what you mentioned, where this is a tool that I know I will be needing. It's a must, and I'm going to have for a really long time. So that's the investment that you want to do. That's what you want to put your money into something that you know you're going to have for a really long time. Going back to TengTools, having everything organized, which I think we say this a lot, get organized. And this is why, because you want to know when you have the right tool at the right time and not having to look for it. And
well, prior to having this kind of setup, and I mean, all of these tools come sort of foamed by Teng. But prior to this, I had a toolbox with just random tools in it.
Everything goes in there.
Yeah, you'd get to the end of a day working in the garage, working on a bike or doing something, you'd be trying to put your tools away. And the reality is you have no traceability of knowing where all the tools are and whether they're all away. But, you know, when you have a foamed drawer and there is something missing, it's really obvious. You can see it's not there to know something's missing. Maybe it's still in the engine bay of the van.
Yeah. So you need to make sure to bring it back.
Yeah.
And also, you're working on a bike. You want to know where the tool is. So you know, okay, if I need this specific tool, I know it's in the third drawer. So I can go and get it. Otherwise, you have this big box that you need to go through and try to find it.
Yeah, and I think there's an extra thing where you have a home for every tool. There is a duty of care that you have for your tools. And I'm a big believer, you know, if you want your bike to do well and be trusted when you're in the desert, you need to look after it well. Yeah. And if you want your tools to last well, you want to be looking after them as well. And, you know, when you're putting it away in a toolbox in its nice place, there's that extra incentive of I'll give it a little bit of a wipe down if it's covered in oil and grease. And that helps you prolong the life of things as well. Yeah. And they're looked after, and they're going to then look after me more.
Yeah. So give me 3 reasons why you choose TengTools.
Do I have to only have 3? Okay, so I would say the reputation of the quality. That's backed up by the company's belief in the tools, with the fact that they have lifetime warranties. So that quality, durability. I think the range of tools and the organisation of those tools is really important. And then I'm going to have to say I love the logo and the colour. I mean, like, it's just really cool.
Yeah. You've got everything organised in here. Where can we find the torque wrench?
So it depends what you're going for. We've got 2 sizes in here.
Yeah.
That's the lower settings down to lower, like 9 to 25, and then it goes all the way up to the big bad boy that's going to be used on the cars up top.
We can see that.
And then we've also got a couple of torque wrenches in here. When I go on the road with the bikes in the trailer, this top unit is removed and goes into the trailer, and that's kind of a holistic kit that we need on the bike. So there's a couple of torque wrenches in there, bit of duplication, but I don't bring this big unit in the trailer. Yeah.
So there is an elephant in the room, your bike. We would definitely like to know more about it.
So this is Big Buddy. He's a KTM 450 RFR Rally replica, and this is the Bentley of what you'd want to be on to go into the extreme desert racing. He's a monster of a bike. It's about 177 kilos fully loaded with fuel, because it's got a 33 litre fuel tank capacity. You've got to have a fuel autonomy of at least 250k a day. So it's a hefty bike. When you think I'm 62 kilos, this is 177 kilos, and you're going into deep sand, huge sand dunes, rocky riverbeds, and there can be times in these races where you don't see other humans for many hours of the day. Typically in these races, you're doing anywhere from 300 to 700 kilometers a day, largely off-road, following a roadbed navigation. It's unbelievably exhausting physically. People often go, well, it's got an engine, how hard can it be? This bike doesn't even stand up on its own. I don't know if you've ever tried walking in deep sand. It's hard. Yep. Try walking across rocky rivers and boulders and the stuff that African terrain throws at you. You are wrestling and keeping that bike going for all of that time. I'd say a typical day in the desert, I'm burning 8,000 calories. And in some of these races, they're 8 days, 13 days. So you're almost doing 2 marathons a day for that many days. It's unbelievably physical. It makes me wonder how I handled that in the dunes and through Africa a year and a half ago. But I did, and I'm really proud of myself. These races are not just motorbikes. There's side-by-sides, quad bikes, SSVs, and even the big trucks and the huge lorries racing. And you're like the tiny little fish out there on a motorcycle. Most races, unfortunately, someone doesn't come home. Yeah. Just to put into emphasis how dangerous they are, from the sort of ridings you're doing where you have a crash, it can be really serious, through to the heat. 52 degrees is the hottest temperatures I've raced through. If you think about a hot tub is 40 degrees, how long you can stay in it, 52 degrees, it's a serious toll on the body. But I think all of those things add up to why it is just so addictive. Sometimes it's type B fun, like in the moment you are purely in survival trying to work out how you get to the end of the day, because you're sleeping in a tent at night as well, just to add to that. You're not in air-conditioned hotels. And when you reach the finish line, gosh, it's just the most addictive adrenaline. You are filled with so much satisfaction. You don't know whether to scream or cry, but it just makes you feel so alive.
Yeah, that's where everything comes together, and all the effort that you've put in.
Making it to the finish line, is one hell of a feeling.
Yeah. I imagine in that moment you may be thinking about all the challenges that you had to overcome in order to be there, and not just for that specific ride, but for everything that happened before.
Yeah, the getting to the start line is a huge achievement. They're not cheap races to do, and there's a lot of kit and sort of equipment that you need to get there. When you're in the desert, if you've forgotten something, you can't just pop to a shop and buy it. You've got to pre-organize everything that you could possibly need.
Prepared.
Yeah. And that's a big deal. The organization of getting there is huge, but then there are moments through the race. I remember one particular day in the Morocco Desert Challenge where it was the day where it hit 52 degrees. And I remember a day, well, probably an hour of that day where I was riding along and I was in my head rehearsing what I was going to record on my phone if I had an issue. Wow. Because I knew that in that temperature, if I had a crash, a mechanical, any reason where I needed to stop, I was game over.
Yeah.
And I knew that even with the emergency systems that we have on the bikes to ping race organisers and say, come get me with helicopters, I didn't believe they'd get to me in time in those temperatures before my body sort of succumbed. And it was scary. And I remember thinking, like, I've just got to keep going. What am I going to say to my, record on my phone so that my family get a message from me? And that day, someone didn't actually make it home.
Wow.
Which
so
was...
it takes you to the extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think I would have the strength if I hadn't had the accident somehow.
Yeah.
I think it taught me a lot about finding my limits, and also a lot of the gratitude of when you are then in a place where you know what it's like to be bedbound, that appreciation of the fact that I've managed to get my body back to a point where I can push and do these things with a lot of pain management, but I can, gives you a whole load of extra fight.
Yeah, that is just amazing, and it's very, very inspiring, and I know many of our viewers will be able to connect to that. What would you say to other people overcoming challenges?
Never give up, and don't always listen to everybody in your life when they don't believe in you. I know the medical profession didn't expect me to be able to do the things that I do, that's for sure, and I know that there are definitely some negative energies around that see, a small female doing these races as not realistic or not achievable.
Yeah.
Find the people that know you the most and believe in you, and surround yourself with supportive people that will say yes when you come up with the crazy ideas, and don't quit. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's a stupid saying, but it's so true. You've got to keep fighting, and sometimes these goals, they don't happen in a week, in a month, in a year. You've got to just keep setting your sights on something and chipping away at them. And then when you have days where you're hurting too much or everything seems to be falling apart and you don't know how you're going to get there, that's okay too. Be kind to yourself, take a moment, listen to your body. Don't beat yourself up for the fact that you're struggling or things are going wrong. Tomorrow's a new day, but just keep chipping away at them.
I think that's amazing, and what you said of having that vision where you want to go and just sticking to it rather than looking at every single step, because some days might be just really bad and you might not be able to see it coming, but if you have that vision, you know what you're moving towards.
You just got to believe in yourself.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful.
I think something that I often say when I go in to do the school talks is the fact that when we look at the world, there are incredible people doing incredible things, and you've got the athletes and the astronauts and the gamers and the football players, whatever it is you're aspiring to be, there are people doing these things, and it's very easy to look at them and think they're some kind of superhumans. They're not. They are totally normal humans like everybody else, but they've got up every day with that goal and they fought for it.
Yeah, and they do
we
the
are all
work.
able to do that as well.
Yeah. I think that's amazing, yeah. And I know we're talking here about tools, but it is, if you have the right tools. In this case, we are referring to TengTools, but we can also say inside you have a good support system, you have the vision. Those are tools that you can rely on, and like they can actually take you where you want to be.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Set yourself up with the right equipment, the right tools around you, skill yourself up. Don't be afraid to be a learner, a newbie. Everybody starts that journey somewhere.
Yeah, that's so true. Everybody starts somewhere. I think that's amazing, and thank you so much. It was a pleasure and an honor to have you open this series, the TengTools series, that we hope to inspire many, and we really hope that our viewers have been able to connect and be inspired as we have. So thank you so much, and see you next time.